Support the Amigos podcast on Patreon or PayPal and receive cool perks and rad swag. Visit our page at everythingamiga.com/support.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today, Aaron, we're going to be talking about Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Yeah.
The graphic adventure, not the action game, the graphic adventure.
Yeah.
Now, Aaron, the first Crusade, at least as we know it here in the Western canon of civilization, was all about the retaking the Holy Land from the infidels. Now, tell me about... what are you going to crusade for or against in your life, Aaron? Tell me about one of your great crusades.
If I could go on a crusade, right, and I'm talking a sword yielding, like, cut a sucker down, right?
Man.
I would like to go after the FCC. That's who I would go after. I would gloriously cut up suckers on my way to the top. And you know how that guy's got that big coffee cup? I'd smash that over his head and kick him in the booty. Get him out of there. And because that guy's offered the poor folk of West Virginia and these other places in the States nothing but trouble. And by the way, it's not just him. It's every SCC chairman we've had. Crooked. All of them. Crooked as the day is long. If I have a crusade, it's to unmonopolize internet providers and cable operators. Get these suckers out of here. And let's have a free market like we're supposed to have in this country. Not a bunch of monopolies. But that's where I'd go, buddy. What about you?
That's a fantastic crusade. I would join that crusade in a heartbeat. And we could put the Amigos logo on our shield.
Yeah, man, I like it.
Battle.
Right before we were killed instantly by the Secret Service. Yeah.
I believe that I'd crusade for potato skins. Like, do you know that there are many people? Yeah, I'm not. No, God, no, those are horrible. I'm talking about real deal potato skins, like you get at a real deal restaurant, like TGI Fridays.
You mean like when they cut a potato in half, they'd like put some spices and butter on that sucker, and then you serve it up?
You scoop out most of the potato. 99% of the potato is gone, and all you leave is the skin and just a little bit of potato. Then you fill that sucker full of cheese, some bacon pieces. Then you put some scallions on top. You dip that sucker in the cream or the sour cream, and then you stuff it in your face. Repeat ad nauseum.
I guess that I don't understand where the crusade would come into that.
Well, listen, there's a lot of people in this world for whom potato skins have no meaning. They haven't let potato skins into their life yet. And so what I would do is I would ride into battle with a big red skin, speaking of the NFL, but not the kind you're thinking of, the red skin potato on my shield. And I would bring the joy and the peace of the potato skin to all of our friends throughout the world.
So when you say it's more like a promoter.
Yeah.
You would promote why potato skins? Why not Eggs Benedict? Why not licorice? Why not cookies? Why is that your favorite food, or do you think it's been underutilized over the years?
Incredibly underutilized throughout the years. There are so many people out there that have never had a potato skin. I know it's hard to believe coming from where we come from, but it's something that I feel strongly about, and I hope to one day, make that dream a reality.
Let me ask you before we move on from this interesting topic. Are potato skins mostly an American affair, or are these something that are enjoyed worldwide? But as a world traveler, I assume you would know this.
They're 100% an American affair. In fact, potatoes in general are just not as enjoyed as rambunctiously as we do here in America. Here in America, you're hard-pressed to find a meal without a potato on it.
Uh-huh.
You're going to eat a potato 9 times out of 10. And so the fact that, we had the ingenuity, I mean, it's really part of the American dream. That we were able to scoop out all the nutritious parts of the potato, throw those away, and only leave the crispy skin and fill it with cheese. That's where it's at.
That's why we're the chiseled, golden-skinned Adonises that we are.
That's right. I look like some kind of bronze Greek god.
That's right. The god of sloth.
All right, Aaron. Well, let's talk about what's been going on here in our Amigos retro gaming community this week. Let's start over on the YouTube page, shall we?
Good idea, Boatster. Now, let's get into some of the wackiness here. Now, let's go with my stream. This stream Well, I'd forgotten about this, but it's funny. I was talking to Brent about this earlier. Occasionally I'll just do a stream and have no idea what I'm doing. I know this is stunning to you. So I decided that this stream was going to be reimagined classics. And so we went through and played a bunch of classic games that were more made after they were classic the first time. We tried
the way that animated thumbnail is going is sort of making me ill.
Yeah, it's funny because that right there, this is what I was talking to Brent about. We played like a new version of Afterburner. I think it was like the PS2. And one of the best parts of the game is it shows all the pilots at the beginning in their planes. And the cool guy pilot is in the cockpit of his plane smoking. So every part of that is the dumbest thing you could do in a plane. He's smoking.
I hear that's something pilots do often. Just light up, just right there in the plane.
I like that. Even if it wasn't an oxygen-rich environment that would kill you, the fact that the whole cockpit would be filled with smoke like a pool hall as this guy careens at Mach 3 towards the enemy.
Danger Zone playing in the background.
I love it. Trust me, that takes Danger Zone to an exciting new level. I will say the highlight of this episode, or this show, was our playing of the reimagined Paperboy on the N64. When I say reimagined, this was reimagined by someone with brain damage. It is one of the most diabolical versions of Paperboy I've ever seen. So if you want to watch just some wacky fun, we had a good time doing that one. Let's talk about last week's ARG boat. You know, I was talking to Brent today. 2 weeks ago, we did the ARG Atari ST versus Amiga 500 boat. This was one of the most popular episodes we've ever done. It's at least in the top 2. You know, this is very popular.
Your mouse, man. You've got to move your mouse. I can't take it anymore.
Oh my God, boat! Get you and your hang-ups. Anyway, one of our most popular episodes. So the follow-up to this, one of our least popular episodes for a long time. But by God, we just played the hand we're dealt. This time we did fight. It was fight games.
You know, here's my particular theory on this. People, you know, there are lots of people on both sides of the Atari ST Amiga, debate. There is nobody that's arguing for Prey for Death versus Killer Instinct.
Well, there is now, and you're looking at him. Me, I'm going to stand up for Prey for Death, boat. And Brent took the side of Killer Instinct, and I think universally it was agreed that Killer Instinct lost handily to Prey for Death. If you want to see how it goes down.
You'll have to tune in. You'll have to tune in to listen to Aaron's reasoned argument for why Killer Instinct is not a good game.
I can sum up my argument for Prey for Death in one word. Wacky. It's one wacky game. You can play as Cthulhu. No said. So
hey, I'm not arguing against Prey for Death. I think they're both great games.
Do you really?
No.
I knew it. I knew you were lying. So, you know, this has been glorious. I'm so happy about this, boat. Our good buddy Jack freaking Flack, right, a.k.a. Rob O'Hara, has started his own streams going, and he's been uploading them to YouTube. And right out of the gate here, amongst the things he plays was Mario Bros. He plays a ton of stuff. I actually caught one of his streams last night. In fact, we'll talk about that in a minute. It was great. So I highly recommend checking out Rob's stuff. Boat, my good friend here, tell us about TNC Surf Designs unboxing and review.
So, I have a very small collection. That's not true. I've got a large collection of NES games, but they're mostly the launch release of the NES, the Black Box series. That was something that I spent many years compiling. I only have a few boxed regular Nintendo games that are outside of that lineup. And so I thought, well, I've been doing all of this ZX Spectrum unboxing and reviews. Why not do something from the NES? So I started with one of my favorite games, TNC Surf Designs. And this is one of these games that's really not a great game. Nobody's going to put this on the top 100 games of all time. But gosh darn it, it's a game I like. And I like the whole concept. It's funny, Rob was talking about on one of his You Don't Know Flax about how, he wore skate shoes when he wasn't a skateboarder. He'd wear OP stuff and stuff like that. I was sort of the same way, except I wasn't even that much of a poser. Like I didn't even wear the clothes. I had nothing to do, but in my mind, I was one of these guys on the cover of TNC Certified. I was standing upside down on my skateboard, and I always wanted some Town and Country Surf Designs clothing. Guess where you're going to find that in West Virginia back in the early 90s, Aaron? Nowhere. Nobody's selling it.
No, not a lot of surfing or skating going on here.
No. So anyway, I go through, I talk about, we talk about the box. I go through the instructions. Some of the instructions are quite humorous. And then I play some of the game. It's a good time. If you want to watch me chill out with one of my favorite games, this is the thing to watch.
I love it. But by the way, I've played that game, and it is not the best game, but it is different. I will say that. And I actually sort of enjoyed it in a weird way. So back to our good buddy Jack Flack, who this time out, Sprite Castle plays Commodore 64. And it is what it sounds like. He gets on here on stream and just plays some C64. You got Popeye in here. You've got, now we actually played this on a stream. What is the name of this crazy game? I played this. I can't remember the name right off the top of my head, but it's wacky. Some Kung Fu. There he's playing some Hyper Sports. So a good mix of C64 action from your buddy Rob. Rock and Bolt. Thank you, Rob. Luckily, Johnny on the spot. So check him out. Another awesome Rob Flack O'Hara stream. Boat, look at this. Here it is. It finally came out. Let me repeat this, a new R. Sinclair Boatster.
That's right.
After popular opinion, forced our hand, Boat. We were back into it. With another R. Sinclair.
We took a 5-month break from R. Sinclair. We've been off since May, and I figured I wanted to pick a game that I thought would be fun to talk about. So I picked out Action Biker, and boy, this is I wouldn't, this is just another one of these games. I wouldn't call it a good game, but I'd call it an interesting game. And I think that we had some good talks about, what makes this game fun, what they could have done better. And then we talked a lot about how it's different than the port for the C64 and the Atari 8-bit, which was also an interesting discussion. So
yeah, I enjoyed this one, to be honest with you. I think it was too ambitious for its own good, frankly. But I dug it. And I liked the exploration aspect of it, So yeah, that was a good one to come back on, Boat. I have to say, I have heard about that game for years. I think I even played it on one of these systems. I'm not sure which one, but I really enjoyed it, Boat. So that was a good call. So yeah, we're gonna try to get some R. Sinclairs back in the game, Boatster, and
absolutely,
and keep that ball rolling. Now let's talk. Here's your good buddy, everyone's good buddy, really, Neil. And this is you looking over the calendar, right?
That's right. So, my calendar, my RMC charity calendar, appeared in the mail as if by magic. And I thought, hey, this has got a lot of cool photos about it. Why don't I sit it down in front of me and just ramble on for half an hour about all the pictures that are in it?
And
that's what I did. It's hard to believe, Aaron, that I can ramble on about nothing for 30 minutes. But I did. And so, yeah, there's a lot of cool systems, Aaron. It's amazing, when you turn through these months, the variety. And Neil really did a good job of picking out not only the finest examples of photography, but also a good mix of, retro computers and consoles that represent all the different eras of gaming. So I was a big fan of this. I like how he worked the luggables in here, too. There's some really cool luggables that I'd never even seen before, plus the SX64, as you can see right there.
Yeah.
So at any rate, I've just heard from Neil that these are completely sold out now. So if you want one, I would suggest maybe getting in touch with him on Twitter, or ask him if he's going to do another run in the future. It might be possible if there's enough interest out there. And like I said, I can't recommend this calendar highly enough. It's a really cool thing to hang on the wall. I've already got a place picked out here in Amigos Studios. I'm going to hang it on the wall. So like I said, if you're interested, send him a note. Who knows? Maybe he'll be able to do another run of these. And these all benefit a charity called Heels of Malmesbury, which helps low-income people in that neck of the woods over in the UK.
Outstanding. Of course, everything Neil touches turns to solid gold because it's quality
Speaking
stuff.
of solid gold, Aaron, I want to go ahead and talk about this before we move on because it is Neil related.
Oh, yeah.
If you wouldn't mind putting me on the big screen.
Absolutely.
I want to tell you about this book. I've received in my hot little hands Retro Tea Breaks Selected Interviews Volume 1. This is Neil's full-length book that he's done based on his series of interviews for his podcast series, Retro Tea Breaks. This was recently kickstarted and was well-funded, and I believe is now also available for purchase. So I have not had a chance to look at this yet. I've not read it. It literally just came in the mail today, but I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate the way that this book is constructed. This is no cheap book, Aaron. This is very well bound. It's got a built-in book ribbon. It's got the sewn binding right here. And here's something I didn't expect at all. There's a section in the middle with color photos. You know how books used to do that back in the day, where they didn't have full color pages, but they had that the kind of the photo paper section in the middle. Was not expecting that level of quality. He's really knocked these out of the park, and I believe that these are available for sale on his website. So this has been the Neil from RMC product placement segment. We were not compensated for this part of Amigos, but I did want to talk about both those things since the book did just come today.
I will say I also kickstarted Neil's book, and I am anxiously awaiting my arrival of said book in the mail. So I'm excited about that. Let's finish up here, and of course now this I actually was firsthand. This is a stream from just last night from Mr. Flack. If you want to see someone play 10-yard fight for a couple hours, you're out of luck, because he does play some 10-yard fight, but a large chunk of this is Flack showing photos of his trip to the Kong Off 3 and to Billy Mitchell's restaurant, and stories about meeting Billy Mitchell. A great story about him and him making his wife eat at Ricky's, which I thought was great. So if you want story time with Jack Flack, and listen, I think Bo will agree, no one tells him like the Flack. He's like a jukebox of hilarious stories. Just all you have to do is hit the button, and here he goes. And he did it last night, which I love this. And I like the fact that he intermixed this in with some 10-yard fight to celebrate Thanksgiving the American way, which is with loads of football. Glorious,
That's right.
Glorious thing. So good stuff there, Mr. Flack. I enjoyed that immensely, Boat.
Now, Aaron, before we move on, I do have some Amiga news to share with all of you. It's very rare that I actually have Amiga news that's going on in my life at this time.
That is rare.
So I'd like to show you a couple things, if you wouldn't mind putting me on the big screen one more time. If you see behind me here, as I turn, if you're watching the video and still I can speak into the microphone. Look at this. I look awesome now.
Boat.
So behind me, you see the Amiga 1000 in a state of disassembly. The reason why is because I got tired of looking at my 1000 and only being able to play just like the Kickstart disc and that EA demo disc. And I was like, you know what? I've got this GoTech here. I'm going to slap this bad boy into the 1000. Even though lots of things I read online said, you can't use a GoTech in a 1000. It'll never work. It's not powerful enough. It totally works. So if you've got a 1000, don't be afraid. It fires right up. Now, you do have to have another Amiga to be able to put the Kickstart into the right position on the GoTech. You've got to be able to put the ADF, you got to be able to load. But once you do that, then you don't need the other Amiga. I just threw the Amiga 600 out the back door, never use it again. It's rotting away in the backyard right now. Now I've got the 1000, that's all I need. So the next phase of the plan is our glorious listener, David Z, is agreed to send me a 3D printed mount for the 1000 that actually includes one of those little LED screens, Aaron, that tells you the name of the game right there on it. No more, 6-position LED readout. This is the full experience, and it slots right into the drive bay, so you don't have to do anything to the outside of the Amiga. There's no sketchy tech shenanigans going on here, if you know what I'm saying.
You ought to get him to make you a new cover for that memory expansion too.
Well, I do have the cover is right next to it. I don't know if you can see it, but I do have the other 1000 that Kilobytes and Caffeine sent us.
Oh yeah,
that is missing the memory cover, and he's agreed to print one of those out for me. So that is all coming very soon, and so next week you should see the Amiga 1000 locked and loaded, playing some game. And sitting behind me on the desk. I'm super excited to be able to use this thing, do some streaming from it, and get the 1000 back in action. The other thing here in Amigo Studios that I wanted to share with you see the Amstrad CPC over here to my left. It is every week I'm going to feature a different system. Of course, this CPC is not actually playing what you see on the screen. What I've done is I've taken a Raspberry Pi I had sitting around, and I've loaded a video looper utility on it. And thanks to you, Aaron, your CoinOps collection that you assembled, I've got all of these videos of all these different systems. So I'll pull down a different computer, and I'll just have some gameplay footage of that computer running behind me to give you something interesting to look at as we film Amigos every week.
And hopefully after the COVID, we'll be able to get your Amstrad up and running, Boat. That's the plan anyway. Hey, I want to mention, by the way, a thank you to both David Z, for sending us just a glorious amount of goodies, which we're gonna be distributing amongst the people. And also, I want to thank Kilobytes of Caffeine. That was super duper generous sending that Amiga 1000 down. And I want to say that if you're interested, Kilobytes of Caffeine has a YouTube channel. He does some really unique content on there, and some real real-to-life stuff that I think that a lot of people would appreciate. So if you get a chance to check him out, I recommend it. And he changes up stuff. He takes on some unique challenges, and I definitely think his channel is definitely worth a look. So give him a shot. So thanks to both those fellas. Hey, we appreciate you guys sending us goodies down. I guess before we finish up this, but I'll go ahead. I've got one little thing to talk about real quick in the Amiga front.
Okay, man.
And I was talking to our good buddy Tin Mark, a.k.a. Doug, about this. I just opened this up today during the ARG Presents Marathon. This is the header for my Unamiga. This came in, and this will allow my Unamiga to play MSX and
ZX
Spectrum Next, and also C64 and NES. Will all be accessible. So I think me and Doug are going to get together, and Doug's going to hold my hand, and while I whimper, and I'm going to go through and try and get this thing fixed up on camera so we can maybe help somebody else out that's going to be going through that same thing. This should bring my Unamiga up to everyone else that just bought their Unamigas. And I know Doug's already done his, and he says it's the bomb. So I'm looking forward to doing mine.
I can't wait to watch you tear into some ZX Spectrum Next stuff,
man. Oh, yeah.
Tell me.
Oh, dude, are you kidding me? I'm fired up about it, man. So that closes the door on videos, except if you take the notion, we are just coming off, just today, we finished up the ARG Presents Thanks for Giving Marathon, me and the Brent. We ran 8 hours from 9 to 5 today, and it's over on Twitch right now. I'll be busting up a highlight reel of it, stick it on YouTube if you want to catch it there. But if you want to watch 8 hours of me and Brent furrowing our brows in a vain attempt to play online video games and doing some other stuff, we had a good time. We had a good turnout, and it's available over on our Twitch channel. There you go, Boat. That's the end of the video news.
All right. Well, let's talk about some Amiga news, shall we?
Good idea. Here he is, Mr. Robot, coming to town.
Sing it.
Gamble Train.
All right, Aaron. We kick things off this week with something that's not a new news story. Every once in a while, I just like to highlight a member of the Amiga community that I think is just doing a bang-up job. And that person this week is our man, Amiga Love.
Amiga Love. I love Amiga Love.
You know, I've been searching the internet far and wide for NTSC Amiga games in ADF format. These are not easy to find. Most of the time, of course, when you come across ADF collections, they are not labeled NTSC or PAL, and 9 times out of 10, they are PAL because the Amiga non-factor in the United States.
Oh, Doug, eat it.
What we've done here, what Amiga Love has done, is he's actually found NTSC games. He's pulled them from the darkest corners of the blackest flea markets and secondhand retailers of the world, the Tuesday mornings of the world, if you will. These things were being blown out right and left because of lack of Amiga sales. And he's rescued them. And he's ripped the ADFs so I can use them on my Amiga 1000. This was his plan from the beginning. He's like, one day someone will get an Amiga 1000 and they will want to use these. Now, that's not all, though, because accompanying these files, Amiga Love has written some of the most in-depth reviews I've read on Amiga games on any platform of all the times, including magazine reviews. He really focuses his archive on role-playing games, which is not really my cup of tea. The computer role-playing game is just something that I've never really gotten into, but I've loved reading these reviews. It's so interesting to read all of his takes on, the gold box games, a lot of these more obscure games that I'd never heard of, like this Arthur, the Quest for Excalibur and stuff like that. It's a really, really great site that he has. And like I said, the ADFs, most of these ADFs he has ripped himself, and they are guaranteed to be NTSC games. So if you are one of the 3 or 4 NTSC Amiga owners out there, you can join the club. Me and Aaron both have one, so there's probably about a dozen. You can join the party and go over to amigalove.com to check out his reviews, join his forums, and download those ADFs.
I never knew about this, I'll be honest with you, and I love Amiga Love. I go to his forums quite often.
Yeah, I've been to his forums a million times, but I never thought to check out his actual site, and it's amazing.
Yeah, this is really good. So yeah, a good for we're as usual, boat tardy to the party, my friend.
Yeah, man.
That's good stuff there.
Yeah, so that's the first story. The second story comes to us from YouTube. This is from the Retro Bits channel, and this is a video about replacing the power supply fan on an Amiga 3000. What's one thing that you know about fans on old computers, Aaron?
They're loud.
They're incredibly loud. They are, they're loud to an extent that I can't believe that I put up with them for as long as I did. In these days of, more silent fans, I fire up the Plastic Fantastic. Sounds like a wind tunnel.
Yeah, yeah.
And the Amiga, the Amiga is no exception to this rule. So I for people that are interested in replacing their fans and they might want some guidance, this is a great little walkthrough that RetroBits does, talking about how he breaks down the power supply, switching out the fan, what kind of fan he used and stuff like that. So check this out if you you're still using your big box Amiga, but you want to quiet it down a little bit.
He's got some good stuff over there, Boat.
Yeah, man. Yeah. All right. Next up is a long form article that was submitted to us by Tapes from the Crypt on our Discord server. I remember that because this is one of these articles that's just really stuck with me. This is called "The Sixth Stage of Grief is Retro Computing." And it is basically a piece about this guy's, growing up with an Amiga, with an older mentor that really made a difference in his life, and how he uses emulation to kind of escape back into that world. And it's a very, very well written piece. It almost reads like a piece you might find in the New Yorker or something like that. And it's basically just a story of emulation. It's a story of the Amiga, and it's a story of this guy's memories growing up. So I highly, highly recommend it. And it is over on medium.com. Of course, you can just go over to gather.com. You click on the link in every show notes and every podcast or on the YouTube, and you can find this, all of our news links. I highly recommend you read this article.
Good stuff, Bo. That looks great. I'm going to check that out.
Next up is our buddy Doug, Mark, the 10-minute Amiga Retrocast. This week, Aaron, he is reviewing the game Whiz. We've talked about Whiz several times on the podcast. It's one of these games that looks pretty cool. Got sort of a goofy-looking protagonist. Goofy protagonist, an Amiga platformer? What?
It's a must.
Hard to believe.
Yeah.
So anyway, and this time, for the first time, Doug's son has joined him to help out on this review. And boy, does he look excited. He just can't get enough of the Amiga. I'm sure he wouldn't rather be playing the games that he likes.
He did. Now, wait a minute. He does offer some pretty good insights on this, though.
Well, that's the thing. The great thing about talking to kids is that they don't beat around the bush. They cut straight through the crap, and they let you know where a game falls down and where it stands up. So it's good to have a younger person's perspective in there, and I think that we're going to be seeing more of this guy. Daniel is his name. And I think it's great anytime you get, if you can get your kids involved in the same kind of thing that you're into, at least to some extent. I know you and your boy, you both enjoy a passion for playing old games. It's a really great thing that father and son can do together.
My son wouldn't have the patience to sit through one of these things. He does. We occasionally will do a stream or something, but I think it's great that Doug and his son are getting together, and this is a perfect, I will say, when Luke's a little older, I'd like to do something like this because I like the idea. I mean, you're right. Younger kids just play different stuff, and so you're going to get a different perspective on a game like a classic Amiga game. And I'll tell you something else. I watched this myself. because we had questions about this game when we first saw it, and one thing I like about Doug over there, he first of all, Doug's always very complimentary, but he's not going to let people get away with stuff. And this game had some weird issues, booting out of playing the game out of the desktop, or doing something like that. Just it was coming out weird unless you booted from with it on the floppy drive, or not supporting the second drive. That stuff that, again, I agree with Doug, is in 2020. That stuff needs to be fixed. And like he said in the video, I got a sneaking suspicion that that they will fix this stuff pretty quickly with a new revision. But the game looks interesting, and they seem to dig it. And so I think it might be a winner. I'm sure we'll cross paths with it somewhere down the line. So thumbs up for Tinmark and his son for doing a review. I think that's awesome. I thought that was super duper.
I'd love to see more of that. I was given when you first click on the video and you go forward to the part where Doug is talking and Daniel's just sitting there. He doesn't look like he's the most enthusiastic guy in the world, but I'm sure that he enjoyed doing this. What kid doesn't love being on camera, So I'd really love to see more. I'd love to see this turn into a regular series because, again, getting that person from outside sort of the Amiga bubble, getting their viewpoint on things, really, really cool. Really, really cool to see.
I concur. Good job, Doug.
Aaron, our next story has some fantastic news. We've talked about Amiga Addict magazine for the last couple weeks as they strive towards their 500 issue goal of being able to actually put this thing to print, and I'm happy to report that they've met that goal. Amiga Addict will be coming out in either physical or digital form in December, so you can go over to Simulant's shop now, which the link is also in the show notes, and you can purchase this in either physical or digital form. Look at Amiga Bill looking like a man there on the cover.
That right there, that's how you get to 500 issues. You put Bill's smiling face on the cover, and you get to work. And you got David Haney in there. It's a all-star cast in there, Boat. I love it. I knew this was gonna make it. Our buddy is in fact, several of our buddies are involved with this. I believe Ravi's editing this, isn't he?
Ravi's involved. Pixels at Dawn is one of the lead writers. So we've got a lot of the heavy hitters in the Amiga community involved in this thing.
I will say this, and this is not to blow smoke in yonder chat room, but we happen to be buddies with super, super talented people, Boat, who know their craft. They're multi-talented, and I had no doubt that this was going to fly right out of the gate. And so it makes me very happy that this is going to go to print, and I'm looking forward to reading it. Should be awesome, Boatster.
Yeah, man. Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for all of the roundup of this week's Amiga news. Let's jump right into Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the graphic adventure.
All right, man. Do. Now, listen, Boat, my friend. I remember back in my nefarious days when I used to, copy that floppy. I picked up Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the action game, and I picked up Indiana Jones and Last Crusade, the adventure game. I picked them both up, because Indiana Jones, right?
Right.
And I'll tell you, and now I haven't played it recently, but as I recall, Indiana Jones, the action game, wasn't very good. I remember hating that game. So maybe when we go back to it, I'll like it. But I remember seeing what this game was and just not playing it. So I will say this was my first go-around with this particular title. Now, I know you love these games. Had you given this one a whirl before?
I had never played this one. This is, a lot of these came from the time that, this late 80s period I just wasn't playing a whole lot of games that didn't have, that weren't on the consoles at this time. So this was a new experience for me.
Yeah, it was for me too. Now, I will preface this by saying, as you know, these are not my bag, and we'll go from there. So let's talk about this bad boy. Released in '89, Boat, and this was done by the good folks over at the Lucasfilm developer. Now, on the Amiga, these guys had I'd say think about all the different developers we've looked at, and their games sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, right? Listen to this lineup of games that these guys released on the Amiga, all right? And then tell me, find the dud, okay? Battlehawks 1942, Loom, Maniac Mansion, The Monkey Island, Their Finest Hour, and Zach McCracken, and this. These were all games.
And then when you combine that with the other LucasArts
games, yeah,
like Ball Blazer and Rescue on Fractalus on the 8-bits. Talk about, I mean, there's never been a movie studio that's branched out into video games that's done anything like Lucasfilm did when they made LucasArts.
They had quite a staff, and if you look at the people that worked on this game, and the list of people, I didn't write them all down because it was like 1,000 people. These guys, they didn't screw around. They went to work, and I know some of the games they actually made on the ranch, the Lucas Ranch, and I think this was amongst them. I think they must have had a headquarters out there, so that'd be kind of neat. One would wonder if the big man himself would ever wander in and put the boots to anybody that wasn't programming fast enough or doing a good job. This was coded by Dan Filner. Graphics on this were done by, I guess, guys that did a lot of work for Lucasfilm. Martin Cameron, Michael Ebert, and Steve Purcell. These guys all worked like Zach McCrack, and some of the guys worked on Fate of Atlantis and Monkey Island. So you had a lot of the same guys in there. Of course, this will run on the old OCS. Bo, this had a lot of conversions. It's funny for a game that I didn't play and really have not a whole lot of knowledge. This thing actually was spread out quite a bit here. It got a release on the ST, the FM Towns and the Towns Marty. It's funny, those tend to get a lot of releases of adventure games, like graphic adventure games. And, of course, DOS, the Mac, and the CD-TV is listed as having a version of this. I don't think I've ever come across that one. That might be kind of neat. And this game was, again, a companion to a separate game that was released at the same time called the Ash game. We're not going to get into it too much, but it was just another type of game. What do you think of the idea of releasing two games based on the same property right about the same time, Bode?
It's a strange idea. And it's one that we've seen multiple times on the Amiga. I don't know if they were released in the same time, but remember Elvira had those two games that I think came out around the same time?
Oh, yeah, dude. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I guess, whenever you buy a license, you're trying to make your money back. And you want to try and cover your bases as best you can. And with two genres that are as different as action and point and click adventure, that Venn diagram of players is probably not going to overlap very much. So there's some merit to that idea. It's just a question of paying two full teams to develop two different games if you're going to make your money back. Now with a flick like this, I have a feeling that they probably did. I don't know, how many millions of dollars the Elvira games raked in, but I'm willing to bet that they didn't come out of that deal as well as the guys here at LucasArts.
I will say, I guarantee you there were less people that worked on the Elvira games.
True.
That's
sure. That's a good point. That's a great point.
Before we get into this, Bo, let's talk a little bit about the Indiana Jones franchise in terms of the films, and in particular this particular film. Now, Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade was the third film. You had Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones: The Temple of Doom. You had this, Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade, which was the last film for the longest time. And then you had the what I would consider a debacle that was Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, Curse of the Crystal Skull, if you will. What did you think of the movies? Are you a fan of these films? Because I know you're not really into violence that much.
To me, this strikes just the right balance of action, adventure, comedy, and just what going to the movies should be. Spielberg does such a great job at that. I guess that's sort of what he's known for. I love these movies. I think they're all great. I'm not a huge Harrison Ford fan, actually. I don't think he's actually a very good actor, but he is able to play this particular role very well. It's basically Han Solo with a hat.
I really like Harrison Ford, actually. I think he does a pretty good job in these movies. Now, I'll grant you, he's sort of that guy that plays. He's the rugged guy that plays the role. That's his thing. But I always enjoy him. I'm not saying he's like going to win the Oscar every year, but I think he does a pretty good job. Of course, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Also, you had Sean Connery as Dr. Jones, the senior, the father of Indiana, who gets kidnapped in the film. You also had an opening appearance by, I believe it was River Phoenix, who played young Indiana Jones. One of the best things that came from this film was the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. which chronicled Indiana Jones at different points in his life. Younger
it's a very
versions of him.
descriptive title for the TV show.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not just like one would think. Okay, you get one young Indiana Jones, but there were actually, I believe, 3. There was him as a very small kid, then like a medium-aged guy, and I really enjoyed those. The oldest boy version, where he was served in World War I thought that was great. I'm probably the only person that watched all those. I thought they were really good, but they got removed from TV because the ratings were low and they were expensive. But they were fun. But that was the fact that they existed was directly related to the opening scene in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And this one, Indy's back against the Nazis. I wondered if this game suffered from any release issues in Germany. I didn't read anything about that, but one would assume because there's a lot of Nazi swastikas and Nazi stuff in this. Bo, did you hear anything about that?
No, it's funny. I thought about that as I was. First of all, yesterday was my anniversary, and so I planned, super romantic evening with my wife. I said, you know what? Why don't we get dressed up? Why don't we move into the living room and let's pop on Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade?
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. We watched the movie last night. And as I was watching this, I was thinking, I wonder if this game was on that index, that famous index that we always hear about from our German listeners where games were just banned. I think that you might be able to get away with it by covering up that Nazi paraphernalia because there's not a lot of killing. In fact, there's no killing in this game. And maybe they could just sort of cover it up or replace that symbol with another symbol and be able to get by with it. Although Hitler is in the game, so, I don't know how you get around that.
Interesting. Ricky in our chat just mentions that the swastikas were edited out of the German release, which is odd to me because you're still, clearly you're Indiana's going against the Germans in this from World War II. So I guess editing out the swastika, you could do that and still know what's going on, presumably.
Sure. You're not fooling anybody by doing that. But that's just them's the rules.
Yeah, I understand. Hey, listen, I can understand all of it, to be honest with you. So the movie was a big success, obviously, and of course you would get your games out of this, and of course Indiana Jones is prime for one of these graphical adventure games, and so here we have Last Crusade. Now, you told me you just watched the film. I will tell you up front that I did play this game straight up, and I didn't get very far. In fact, I got so not far that I just went ahead and also watched someone play it, and I'll have to say, Boat, and I don't know how far you ended up getting in it, but the plot of the game follows along with the movie plot pretty closely, doesn't it?
Yeah, okay. This is my favorite Indiana Jones movie, and I know that it's nobody's favorite Indiana Jones movie.
A lot of people love this one. I disagree. I think a lot of people love it.
I don't think that it's not hated. I just don't think that it's many people's very, very favorite. But the reason why I like this one more than the other films is because I think the story is much more interesting. I think, the whole Grail story obviously exists in real life. And if you are, if you've ever read about the Grail and all of the different attempts to try and recover it over the years, it's sort of fascinating. But one of the things that I love about this movie is that it literally takes you all over the world, and there are substantial scenes in each one of these places. Like there's the catacombs in Italy, and then they're going over and they have that whole adventure in the German castle, and then they go to the Middle East and they do all that stuff. And so to me, that kept the movie interesting versus, the first two movies, it's basically just desert scenes over and over again. Temple of Doom is my least favorite because it's just like, oh my gosh, the whole movie just feels claustrophobic to me. So I love this movie because of the different scenes, and the game does a great job of traveling to all these different places and making you feel like you're part of all these environments. I think it really does a good job of that.
Yeah, the plot, just to summarize it, is Indy is alerted that his father is missing, and that he gets an email. He gets an email. Listen to me. He gets mailed basically a book that was his dad's, and so he connects the dots to basically follow this mystery to determine what his dad was investigating, and eventually comes to the point where he rescues his dad. I will say, not to give anything away, my favorite scene, which is recreated in this game, I might add. There's a scene where Indiana Jones is with his father. They're in Germany. They're at a rally with Hitler, and Indy's got this real important book in his hand, and Hitler comes up and takes the book and signs it. It was one of the best scenes in the film where he autographed
There's
this
a
book.
lot, again, the reason why I like these movies and I don't like, other kinds of movies that are maybe similar is because there's always just the right amount of comic relief.
Yeah.
Whenever there's something and you're all tense up and then something happens, it's kind of goofy and you're like, it's just a feel good movie.
Now, before we get too deep into the plot of the game itself, talk to us, Boat, about the very famous Scum engine, and of course, this uses that engine in a I think a pretty successful way. I mean, I will say I can't fault my lack of gameplay skills on the engine. I mean, this is a pretty much tried and true engine, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the engine that was developed for Maniac Mansion. I believe that Scum actually stands for like scripting something for Maniac Mansion. And to me, any attempt to improve on it only made it worse. I like words. I like being able to read words and know what they mean because it's a word. You know what it means. When it's a picture, sometimes you know what it means, but sometimes you really don't. If you look forward to the next Indiana Jones game, the Fate of Atlantis, they've moved into that next generation. And I don't even know if it was still the Scum engine at that point, but where you're using icons to represent actions. And instead of seeing the item in your inventory, you see a picture of that item. What this leads you to do is to have to continuously hover over the items in your inventory because you've forgotten what they are. To me, that's no good. Plus, I love this is like my favorite time of graphics in computer games. This is, I guess you would call this maybe an EGA, if you're comparing it to a DOS game, the EGA color palette, where they haven't really developed a lot of shading techniques yet. So all the colors are always big and bright and kind of pretty to look at.
Yeah.
If you look at Fate of Atlantis, it's very dithered. There's a lot of gradients. It's a very, very brown game.
Yeah.
And although the graphical fidelity is higher, all the characters look better. The scenes are rendered more photorealistically. I don't think it's as fun to look at as a well-crafted, almost pixel art, created scene like you see in this game is beautiful. Every single place that he visits, the animation is just great. We're watching a scene right now as he's descending a staircase in Italy, and you see him leave, and he's big, and then as they walk toward, he's gotten smaller. I don't know. I really dig that kind of thing. I think it's cool to watch the animations and this sort of primitive pixel art. It's a game that was done with a lot of care and a lot of love.
I'm going to agree with almost everything you said there, Bode. This game, of course, this predates the Fate of Atlantis, which we looked at a while back, I believe. And so this game, you're right. The graphics on this, technically, first of all, I would not be surprised if Fate of Atlantis was ported over from the VGA. Whereas this, I don't know where this came from, but if it wasn't made specifically for the Amiga, I mean, it was perfect for the Amiga, but these were all released simultaneously, so one would assume that they were all worked on at the same time. Mm-hmm. It doesn't look like it came from anything. Like, it looks like it was made to be here. Could the Amiga have done better graphics, more realistic, or more highly detailed? Yes. But for this game, this is perfect. And you're right, it does walk that fine line of EGA, that in that era, and it's beautiful, man. It looks great. The colors are great. And you could tell the amount of detail and time that they put into all the backgrounds. I mean, everything is beautiful. Everything from the airfield, all the stuff on the Zeppelin, the stuff in the castle, it's all very well done. It looks beautiful. And going back to the Scum engine, this is sort of that, you could tell this was not too long after Maniac Mansion, because they sort of I'm not gonna say they changed it, but they redefined it to a certain degree on other games. Mm-hmm. This is much more Maniac Mansion-y. It looks more like that, that original interface, but it's not hard to use. I mean, they weren't stupid. They came onto something, and they made it work. It looks good. I know CD versions of this were released. I don't know if I didn't look at any. I don't know if they have any dialogue or anything. But this is another game where I would never want to hear dialogue. No. Because it runs in your head. You know what Indiana Jones sounds like. And this game is much like a lot of the LucasArts games. It has a lot of humor in it. And a lot of the humor in it has nothing to do with the film. It's just wacky stuff that happens, or little events. Like at the beginning, Indiana Jones comes in and he's wet, and someone asks him why he's wet. He said, "Don't ask." Well, then later, one of his buddies is wet, and he says, "Don't ask." And at the end, he's dirty, and he says, "Don't." It's just like little running gags, little jokes, little funny things that Indiana Jones says when he's trying to get across borders and stuff. He does a lot of like double talk to get past stuff.
The
I love
humor, and
that.
of course, this was designed by Ron Gilbert of Monkey Island fame. So this was really, the first time you really had people that were legitimately funny working in video games. Before this, there were attempts to be funny, and they worked to greater or lesser extents. But I really feel like this is sort of a hallmark, a watermark. What is the mark? I don't even know what the word I'm looking for is. Yeah, a watermark. Watermark? Hallmark?
Hallmark, man.
Is it Hallmark? A Hallmark moment? That seems like something from TV.
Lower the dosage, Boat.
Anyway, this is a watershed moment. That's the word I'm looking for. Where games actually became laugh out loud funny. I think that the LucasArts did a great service to the gaming community with that. Now, there are little things about the Scum engine that even later game engines could have learned from. Like, for example, you don't have to click on walk to go somewhere. You can just click somewhere in the environment and it will walk to it.
Yeah.
And when you click on something, it will tell you what it is. You don't have to say look and then go to it. When you do click on look, it will give you more information about it. But it's sort of that hot buttoning items in the background. It's not like it highlights them like later games did or anything like that, but it does make it easy to see what's important and what's not in each scene. And so, this is just a great example of a well-done adventure game.
Now, it looks great, it sounds great, and the dialogue's great. Okay, now, I'm going to get real for a minute. I suck at these, and I was instantly stuck on these. I swear to you, I don't know how people figure these out. I really don't. I had all kinds of trouble getting anywhere, and I kept having to cheat and go watch other people do it, and to the point where I just said, well, why am I bothering playing this? Because I clearly can't get anywhere. I can't do anything. There's a scene at the beginning where Indy gets sort of like a bunch of angry students. He gets sort of caught in his office. You're supposed to leave through the window. I had all kinds of trouble figuring that out. I didn't know what to pick up. I didn't know where to go. My brain is not wired to play these games. And I
think that may be true to a certain extent, but also the more of these types of games you play, the more you see the patterns, and you do see patterns in games like this where you can sort of put yourself in that logical mindset to say, you know what, I bet that, if I, for example, like the window opening scene, you can't click on some things, but you can click on other things. So while I fully admit that you might be dumb, I don't think you're as dumb as you may think you are.
Wow. If ever a backhanded compliment was given, there it was. I was reading some of the flavor text that came with this game. At the beginning of it, there's a copy protection element where you look at a diary, and I believe some of these actually, I don't know if all, but at least some of these actually shipped with a little like a Indiana Jones diary type gimmick.
Right,
in it.
It came with a physical diary.
Have you actually played you never owned the box copy of this? I'm assuming.
No, I never played this before this week.
Did a lot of the LucasArts games come with like feelies, like the Zork?
I think it's possible. Well, Zork wasn't a LucasArts game.
I know, but I'm saying, like, how the stuff from Infocom has all kinds of goodies.
I had the Dig, and it didn't come with anything. But I think that when games shifted over to CD, I think they started coming with less and less of that stuff, and they put more and more stuff on the disc. Yeah, that was a big letdown for me. I think I've told the story before. When I bought King's Quest VI, I was expecting to get this big manual and everything came with it, but the disc version did have that. The CD-ROM version, the manual and everything was on the CD, and that was super, super lame.
Yeah, I don't. That's a trend I always hated, because how's that going to help you? You need to have that sucker in your hand,
right.
Boatster. Just for fun, I noticed that this of course, it got released for a bunch of stuff, but it actually got released for the ST. So I went over and just grabbed some footage from the ST release of this and fired it up on here to see what it looked like. And it actually, I'd say it's fairly comparable, Boat, to what you're getting on the Amiga. It's not exactly the same as what you would see on the Amiga, but it's pretty close.
I think that the ST could produce graphics that were comparable to the Amiga version in a game like this, where you're basically just drawing pixels on a screen. This is a game. It's just a selection of pixel art with some text commands at the bottom. It's not really pushing the ST or the Amiga to its limits.
I will say there's an endearing. This games like this, when you said this earlier about how this had the feeling of the way the graphical style. This made me really love the game. I had no intention of sitting down and because I was playing the game while I was watching someone play it. I ended up watching the game all the way to the end, and of course I've seen the movie years ago, so I sort of knew how things would go. But I have to say they did a real interesting job on it. There are some bits in this, and I don't know how far you actually got when you played it, but there are several bits in this where you're guiding Indy through mazes. Or through the corridors of the castle. Let me talk
about that.
Yeah, I was hoping you'd get into that.
So here's the thing with this is where this game falls down, and this is where this game is not aged well, is that what they tried to do was, I don't want to say artificially pad the length of the game, but they tried to mix up the gameplay by introducing several non-traditional point-and-click graphic adventure game things to it. One of these things is that there are several places in the game where you have to negotiate a series of mazes, and these can only be solved by trial and error. The first is in the catacombs, and this is where I checked out of the game.
So you got that far, eh? Wow.
After you break through the floor, just like you do in the movie, you go into the catacombs, and then it just becomes a series of deaths, for not doing things the right way, or you're just getting lost and turned around running into dead ends. And, if I was a kid and had unlimited time, then I would have been like, all right, let's do it. I'm gonna break this code, and I'd get out the map. I'd get out my paper and I'd make a map and I'd go through and do it. And I can understand how that would be, sort of fun to do. There's another section where you're walking around the castle in Germany. And I did not get to this part, obviously, but you're doing the same sort of thing. The castle is huge, and you're walking around and you're talking to guards, and you have to give the right answers. And it just seemed like it was needlessly complex to get through that stuff. If you play any of the later LucasArts games, like if you jump forward to Monkey Island, there's none of that stuff. They've realized that does not, in fact, make the game more fun. One of the interesting things about this game is that it also incorporates an action element where you have to fist fight with various characters throughout the game.
That stunned me. I have to say that part, because I ended up getting in a ring with this boxer guy. It's right at the beginning of the game. And
right.
I was stunned that there was an action element to that. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, and so you have your trainer in the gym at the beginning of the game. You can sort of fight with him to get a handle on the controls, which I thought was a cool thing to do. But it turns out, and again, I didn't get far enough to where I was actually fighting anybody. But people don't tend to remember that part of the game very well.
Those never get over in graphic adventure games when you have to do something that involves reflexes and whatnot. People don't like that, do they?
Right, exactly. Ricky brings another good point out. When you're in the library at the very beginning of the game, there's a bunch of books, okay? And you have to spend a lot of time looking through these books, okay? This was not something that I knew before I watched somebody play this online. But you physically have to click on a ton of books, read the books, and glean information from these books. That is not something that's fun to do in real life, and it's definitely not something that's fun to do in a video game, where you're just basically clicking on different books. And that's how you learn to fly the biplane. That's where you learn different things about the Grail. That's where the map of the catacombs is. If you don't realize that, then you're going to be screwed. And again, if you're a kid, maybe browsing through virtual shelves, to find information about the game would be fun. But to me, I wish that they would have just given you that, at the outset, maybe as a feelie or something like that. At any rate, aside from those minor quibbles, this is probably, it says something about a game where I did the same thing that you did. I just sat back and I watched this whole thing, and it never got boring. Like, you were never doing repetitive tasks. There was never a lot of backtracking and stuff like that makes the game boring. This game moves really quickly, and it takes you through the events of the game. They add in just enough to make it so you're not just flying through it if you've seen the movie. But, it really, and there's multiple endings. There's all kinds of funny death animations. It's very Dragon's Lair-ish in that regard. And there are multiple ways to win as well. So you can do all kinds of different things that you can do. Like you can skip the biplane sequence altogether, and you can take a dirigible, the thing on the Zeppelin album cover.
Yeah.
And so that's just an example. At the end of the game, you can either win and keep the girl, or the girl can take the Grail, try and escape. She can die, and then you end up saving the Grail. There's all kinds of, and again, for 1989 to have things like alternate endings and stuff like that. I mean, this game was really ahead of its time, and I think it ought to be lauded for that.
I think I agree with almost everything you said. The only parts of this game I didn't like to watch, and I'm sure the playing wouldn't be fun, is exactly the ones you talked about, all the stuff in the maze. Because I watched someone that knew what they were doing, and even that I was like, my God, I can never get through that. So I can imagine that you giving up right there. I don't blame you. That's exactly where I would have checked out too. That just looked ludicrous. The castle part made a little more sense because that's not nearly as mazy. So I can understand that part. But yeah, that was no good. I was kind of disappointed that you didn't get to play as young Indiana Jones a little. I'll be honest with you. I thought that would have been fun to have done. Which all you see is I will say the credits on this are awesome as we're watching them now on the train cars as you see young Indiana Jones running from car to car. I love that scene in the movie. In fact, that was my favorite part of the whole film, to be honest with you. And I would like to have seen that implemented in the actual game. In fact, I would like to see a game just based on that, if you want the truth. I'd like to have had a game based on some of his the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. I think they actually made some games for like the Super Nintendo and stuff, but I'm talking like a game like this would have been a lot more fun. But overall, again, this isn't a game I'm going to go back to play. Also, I've watched the whole thing. But if graphic adventures are your bag, I mean, heck, how do we know which ones that we think are the best ones on the Amiga. Does this figure? Do you put this in the top 5 or 6? You think?
Oh, 100%. I mean, for me, Monkey Island is a series. 1 and 2 are the best. This is right up there with Flight of the Amazon Queen. Flight of the Amazon Queen looks better. It decidedly looks better. But in terms of the plot, in terms of the presentation, the care that was put into it, I mean, I'd put this right up there with it. I would put all of those that I've mentioned above Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, which it just didn't strike that same chord for me. Maybe because I was already familiar with The Last Crusade, that had something to do with it. But I think that this game just doesn't, it's just a little bit more goofy, and I like goofy.
Yeah. I will say this game, when it was released, was very popular. According to what I found out, it says here that this was, at the time of its release, it was the best-selling Lucasfilm game ever, with sales over 250,000, which was no easy feat back in those days. And it did pretty well in terms of the scores with the various Amiga mags. I'm not going to run over all these because there's so many, but Amiga, I actually give it a 91%. Amiga Format, it's funny, Amiga Format, as usual, they went back and rescored this, but for once, they actually rescored it higher. Amiga Format gave this, believe it or not, gave this a 71%.
That's insane.
They came back 4 years later and gave it an 82, which there must be a story behind that. Amiga Joker gave it an 81. CU Amiga gave it a 92 the second time around, and the first time around it gave it a 93, so it went down a point. Some of these scores are surprising to me, to be honest with you. The one gave it an 88%. I don't know. I kind of thought it would score a little bit higher than that. Lemon clocks this in an 8.52, so it pretty high praise for the people over at Lemon. What did we get? Any Discord action on this one, Boatster?
We got quite a bit. This week, Aaron. We start things off with Ricky DeRocher. He says, another great point-and-click classic from Lucasfilm Games. The action sequences are a bit clunky, though, including the almost impossible-to-beat biplane sequence and the never-ending fistfights. An option to skip them would have been nice. Also, I wish that more elements from the movie were incorporated into the game, such as the desert tank battle. I love that one when he shoots like the 3 guys right through. That's cool.
Yeah.
Salah, the brothers of the cruciform sword, etc. But overall, it's a great release that is not to be missed by adventure game fans. Chris Folds writes, back in the day, I loved Star Wars, Indiana Jones, simulation games, and point-and-click games. So when an indie point-and-click game came out, it was the meeting of a Venn diagram. I loved this game in the day, and refuse to play it today, as I don't want my memories crushed by any modern-day niggles. I still maintain that the follow-up game, The Fate of Atlantis, was a good enough script for a movie. I give this 8 out of 10. Benny Cake writes, Lucasfilm Games hadn't quite mastered the point-and-click adventure at this point, but they were getting close. I've always loved the movie since seeing it in the cinema with my father, and the game captures the feel of it perfectly. The puzzles are difficult but not impossible, with a few slightly different routes, which gives some replay value. The one drawback are the punch-ups, which are awkward and not a lot of fun. As a result, I found myself saving the game obsessively. Overall, though, this is one of the greats and a worthy 8 out of 10. Zorglub writes, I loved it back in the day and still do. As adventure games go, the series of LucasArts games were great for their time, and the Amiga versions are great versions. I love these games, and this one in particular, 8 out of 10. Paul, a.k.a. Hermsky, writes, a firm 9 out of 10. I don't mind admitting that adventure games were, and still are, my favorite genre, right back to the 8-bit text adventures to the new 4K generation console games. I remember completing this game without the aid of any hints, and fully immersing myself into the game. The use of a notebook and pen, recording my notes and inventory was gratifying. My book would go everywhere with me. Wherever I needed to de-stress and take a break with a mug of tea, I would ponder over my puzzles, immersing myself once again into my virtual world. Overall, a really good game, but sadly it loses its one mark to Monkey Island. And I'm going to take a break, Aaron, to just say this is exactly what I'm talking about. You know, if you can devote yourself fully to a game like this, which is what I did when I was a kid, and like I said, if you've got a notebook that you're carrying around with all your notes, it's almost like you're, Henry Jones Sr. with your Grail diary. You're trying to put things together in your free time. That's what these games are all about, and that's how you truly enjoy these games. So, Paul, I was really glad to read that review. That really put me in the mindset of somebody that really, was passionate about this game. We move on with Frodo NL and his review. He says, I've always loved adventures, starting with pure text adventures on the ZX81 and ZX Spectrum. Early point-and-click adventures I often found somewhat disappointing, though. Too many insta-deaths just because you pick something up. And then came Lucasfilm. Their games allowed for experimentation, making them way more fun to play. This game was actually the first Lucasfilm point-and-click adventure I played, be it on the Atari ST. Playing it now brings back a lot of good memories, but it is also clear that the developers had not completely hit their stride yet. All in all, still a fun game to play, 8 out of 10. And Pixels at Dawn finishes our review roundup by saying, this was my first time with this game, so I was excited to see what it had to offer. The intro was a lot of fun, the dialogue is well written, and it generally looks pretty good for the time it came out. I think it falls closer to the level of point-and-click development of Maniac Mansion than something like Monkey Island, and hence the interface feels quite clunky these days. I also ran into a couple of obscure puzzles early on which didn't help my enjoyment of the game. Overall, it's good fun, however, but doesn't stand up against its successors. 7 out of 10. Another thing that we should talk about, Aaron, is this is one of these games that gives you a score at the end.
I saw that. So
even though it's possible to beat the game, and of course whenever you die it also gives you a score, so even though it's possible to beat the game, this game does offer some replay value as you try and increase your score. Now, like I said, because I haven't actually seen the real instructions, I don't know if they tell you like 500 and something is the perfect score, so you have something to work through, but allowing you to complete the game and then go back and do it differently or do it, quote unquote better is a really, really cool thing. I really like that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, but I looked this up on eBay. I had a feeling this was going to go for some bucks, and it does. I found complete in box versions going anywhere from $90 up to $150.
Wow,
and that's sold, by the way. And the discs alone, I saw going for as much as $36. So this thing commands pretty good money. Of course, I'm not surprised. A lot of these old LucasArts games are very popular and are very worth money. So there you go. A fun, I have to say, I knew this was going to be a busy week for me, but I managed to set aside some time for this, and I really was pleasantly surprised. Again, I wish I was better at these, but I did enjoy it, and I really, the look of it, I will say, did it for me. I thought it was an excellent looking game. And there you go.
Absolutely. We want to thank Zorglub, the Amigos Game Selection Committee member, for suggesting this game to the committee, and we want to thank the committee for voting on it. Good job, Amigos Game Selection Committee. If you are interested in supporting the show and becoming a member of the Amigos Game Selection Committee, please feel free to visit our page at patreon.com/AmigosPodcast. Speaking of the Patreon song last week, Aaron, we had probably the most correct entries that we've ever had for any song that we've ever done. It was an avalanche of correct entries. We had some incorrect entries also, but most people that guessed got it right. We started out. I got a message that said, "I raised my hand so quickly after hearing it, I almost pulled a muscle." Or muscle. And the name of the song, of course, was "Pulling Muscles from a Shell" by Squeeze. Are you familiar with that song, Aaron?
No, I don't know that one,
Okay,
man.
yeah. Well, it's Rob O'Hara. Correct answer. We also had correct responses from Christian Russell, Mitsuyama, Frodo NL, Kate Fox, Memories of a Spectrum Gamer, and Jigglebox. So congratulations to everyone.
Your band and you did a great job on that boat. I really enjoyed
Yeah.
that.
Patreon band did a great job. And of course, we want to thank some people, all the fine folks that make this show happen week in, week out, even after an 8-hour gaming marathon has happened today. We've got a bunch of Twitch subscribers to thank. We want to thank Roscoe500, Mr. Cola, Hasifa, Coconut81, Pixels at Dawn Gaming, David. You know what? This is the first time, because I never see this capitalized properly. I always wanted to call him David Zinaz, but that's not what it means at all. It's David Z in Arizona.
Yes.
David Z in AZ.
Although David Zinaz is pretty good, but
this is another Bomb 6
the
whatever.
Bass.
Bomb 6 the Bass.
Congratulations, you're as dumb as the Brent. Well done.
That's just Edvin Helland, Wolf Adon, Frodo NL, RMC Retro, Gamlet 72, Mori Fumi, Roshi MSX, Negsol, Wishbone, Uber Scuba Diver, Gary Heather, Dan versus Donuts, Sigjor Bjornl, Albie Sure, Jigglebox, Graham NCFC, Mitsuyama, Tinmark, Still Adolescing, Old Bee Sturgeon, Hermsky, Air Jury, Memories of a Spectrum Gamer, Litwarski, 10_foil, Spy Hunter UK 2016, Pints and Amiga, Buck Owens, Macintosh Librarian, Rob O'Hara, Dave Velociraptor, Tom Pops, Duncan Styles, Amigos Retro Gaming. Oh, that's me. I get included somehow. I've been a supporter of this show for 37 months, Aaron.
Finally.
Chris Folds, Retro Jerry, Christian Russell, Fidarta, and Judge Dave.
My God, that's got to be the most people we've ever had.
Yeah,
that's amazing. That's a ton of people, and a lot of great content makers in that mix too. You just kept naming them off. I'm like, wow.
We do record the show live every Friday night around 4 or 5 o'clock. You're welcome to join us. It's always a good time in the chat if you're able. And of course, we would not be anything without our list of Patreon supporters, Aaron. And I've been thinking about doing this as a little unplugged. It's going to be unplugged and incredibly obscure. Does that excite you?
No.
If you know this week's Patreon song challenge, I salute you. You can send me a message at john@amigospodcast.com. Here we go. Data Dog Heavy Systems, Bundy Frag Lord Mark Byland, Olaf Hope Hermsky, Jonah aka Simulant, Ethan Little Alien Breeder, Dave Velociraptor, Calbert Boy Lane Denson, Luke Hudson, John Cook, Bomb the Bass Roshi, Frodo NL, Soul Incisor, Tech Mage Jurgen, Mr. Cola, Daniel Williams, Bernard Lucas, Jerry Dennington, Zorglub, Commodore Kid Reflection, Simon Lech, Captain Crispy, Kilobytes and Caffeine, Gary Heather, Free Lunch, Kate Fox, David Pickford, Cameron Armstrong, Andy Jones, Lobster Manator, 10-Minute Amiga Retrocast, Bernard Quinn, RMC, Tim Drew, Simon Rose, Joseph Harrison, Kyle Etter, Rob O'Hara, Matthew Larimore, Andy Craig, Shanzo, Barkbit Rolenberg, Andrew Monk, Joe the Zombie, Leaf Kelland, Alan Kebab, Checo, Tay Level Lord, John Marshall. Matthew Perron, Ricky DeRocha, Creepy Dead Boy, Figgy CTZ, The Slow Norris, Stefan Sorgord, Mortensen, Edvin Helen, Blindo 75, Christopher Hassel, Ravi Abbott, Chris Foldstream Catcher, Lauren Giroux, Graham Bebke, Adam Battersby, O'Brien's Retro and Vintage, Gary Hucker, Paul Harrington, Duncan Styles, Tapes from the Crypt, Josh Nan, Adam Bradley, Jonas Rulo, THT, Eric Nelson, Kim, Tommy Humbertstad, Daniel Bingston, Brutal Barracuda, Darren Coles, Jason Warnes, Pickles at Dawn, and Kjolbjorn Barman.
Nice work,
Unplugged and obscure.
I suggest plugging. My suggestion. Unplugged didn't work,
All right,
so plug
guys.
in.
So this week we played Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade. Next week, Aaron, we're heading out to the links. You know, they postponed the Masters until November. It's normally in April.
Yeah.
So this is sort of the follow-up to the Masters, where you and I will play Nick Faldo's Fighting Golf.
Oh, this is one of
Not
your
just
old
normal golf.
standout boat solo plays, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is one of our
more
highest watched shows back in the day.
It was. People just couldn't get enough of it. I said this earlier during the Thanks for Giving marathon, but someone actually, I think it was an older gentleman, commented on this video as if I was Nick Faldo himself. He's like, I really loved you, man, back in the early 80s. You were great.
You should have just kept that going. You know, I'm down on my luck. I could use a few bucks. I'm Nick Faldo, though.
All right, and of course, we want to thank all the fine folks who have taken the time out of their busy Friday evening and stayed up incredibly late for those of you over in Europe to watch Amigos Live. First of all, we want to thank our tireless moderators, Duncan Styles and Pixels at Dawn Gaming. You guys do an amazing job. And we want to thank Ten Mark, Amiga Builder, A Required, Artjom V2, Atten, Barkbit, Brock 101, Buck Owens, Cobrian, Commander Roop, Crazy IC, Crivy, David Z, NAZ, Dinu, Duke L. Hudson, Edvin Helland, Electrical Longboard, Eddie 37459, Frodo, Gary Heather, Gianni Bit, Hermsky, John Marshall 3, Kasserin, L. Curtis, B. Lemon Juices 12, Let's Do This Music, Lord Soup Lurks, maybe if I look out of his window, Mitsuyama, Mr. Cola, Olav Hope, Picard 2010, R-Type R, Raidens, Ricky DeRocher, Rob O'Hara, Super Tech Boy, Tom Toms, Terminal Gain, Tinfoil, B&K, Vigoro Pros, Wishbone, and Z9K9. Thank you guys so much for staying up late with us and enjoying a great Friday night.
Some of those people have been here all day, bud.
Yeah, man.
I see a lot of those names.
If you were here for Thanks for Giving, thanks again so much for tuning in and for another great year of just, fun gaming, a great community. I swear, and we have the best community on the internet. There's no question about it in my mind.
They put up with us, so they got it.
That's right.
Thank y'all. Appreciate you.
All right, Aaron. It's been a fun show. We'll be back again next Friday night with Nick Faldo's Fighting Golf. Until then,
Adios.
Adios.